ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. वागर्ताविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्त प्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्रीपार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं पूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितशक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्नवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ട തോറു പ്രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I think we have to do 2 and 3 review today. So let's see, we only have half the people. So, okay. All right, Ritiji, can you do number 2? Okay.
Sri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Dasakam 2 Bhagavat Rupa Varnana. Surya Spardhi Kirida Urdhvatilaka Protphasi Phalantaram കാരുണ്യാകുലനേത്രമാർദ്ര ഹസിതോല്ലാസം സുനാസാപുടം ഗണ്ഡോദ്യന്മകരാഭകുണ്ടലയുഗം കണ്ഠോജ്വലത് കൗസ്തുഭം ത്വദ്രൂപം വനമാല്യഹാരപടല ശ്രീവത്സദീപ്രം ഭജേ കേയൂരാംഗദ കങ്കണോത്തമ മഹാരത്നാംഗുലീയാങ്കിത ശ്രീമദ്ബാഹു ചതുഷ്ക സംഗത ഗദാ ശംഖാരി പങ്കേരുഹാം കാഞ്ചിത് കാഞ്ചന കാഞ്ചിലാഞ്ചിതലസത് പീതാംബരാലംബിനീം ആലംബേ വിമലാംബുജദ്യുതിപദാം മൂർത്തിം തവാർത്തിച്ഛിദം യത്രൈലോക്യമഹീയസോപി മഹിതം സമ്മോഹനം മോഹനാത് കാന്തം കാന്തിനിധാനതോപി മധുരം മാധുര്യധുര്യാദപി സൗന്ദര്യോത്തരതോപി സുന്ദരതരം ത്വദ്രൂപമാശ്ചര്യതോപ്യാശ്ചര്യം ഭുവനേന കസ്യ കുതുകം പുഷ്ണാതി വിഷ്ണോ വിഭോ തത്താദൃങ് മധുരാത്മകം തവ വപുഃ സംപ്രാപ്യ സമ്പന്മയീ സാ ദേവി പരമോത്സുകാ ചിരതരം നാസ്തേ സ്വഭക്തേഷ്വപി തേനാസ്യാബത കഷ്ടമച്യുത വിഭോ ത്വദ്രൂപമാനോജ്ഞക പ്രേമസ്ഥൈര്യമയാദ ചാപലബലാത് ചാപല്യവാർത്തോദഭൂത് ലക്ഷ്മീസ്താവകരാമണീയക ഹൃദൈവേയം പരേഷ്വസ്ഥിരേതി അസ്മിന്നന്യദപി പ്രമാണമധുനാ വക്ഷ്യാമി ലക്ഷ്മീപതേ യേ ത്വധ്യാന ഗുണാനുകീർത്തന രസാസക്താ ഹി ഭക്താ ജനാഃ തേഷ്വേഷാ വസതി സ്ഥിര ഇവ ദയിത പ്രസ്താവദത്താദരാ ഏവം ഭൂതമനോജ്ഞതാ നവസുധാ നിഷ്യന്ത സന്തോഹനം ത്വദ്രൂപം പരചിദ്രസായനമയം ചേതോഹരം ശൃണ്വതാം സദ്യ പ്രേരയത്തെ മതിം മദയത്തെ രോമാഞ്ചയത്യംഗകം വ്യാസിഞ്ചത്യപി ശീതബാഷ്പവിസരൈഃ ആനന്ദമൂർച്ഛോദ്ഭവൈഃ ഏവം ഭൂതതയാ ഹി ഭക്ത്യഭിഹിതോ യോഗസ്യ യോഗദ്വയാത് കർമ്മജ്ഞാനമയാത് പ്രിസോത്തമതരോ യോഗീശ്വരൈർഗീയത്തെ സൗന്ദര്യൈകരസാത്മകേ ത്വയി ഖലു പ്രേമ പ്രകർഷാത്മികാ ഭക്തിഃ നിശ്രമമേവ വിശ്വപുരുഷൈർലഭ്യാ രമാ വല്ലഭാം നിഷ്കാമം നിയതസ്വധർമ്മചരണം യത് കർമ്മയോഗാഭിധം തദ്ദൂരേത്യ ഫലം യദ ഉപനിഷദ ജ്ഞാനോപലഭ്യം പുനഃ തത്വവ്യക്തതയാ സുദുർഗമതരം ചിത്തസ്യ തസ്മാദ് വിഭോ ത്വത്പ്രേമാത്മക ഭക്തിരേവ സതതം സ്വാദീയസി ശ്രേയസി അത്യായാസകരാണി കർമ്മപടലാനി ആചര്യ നിർജന്മലാഃ ബോധേ ഭക്തി പഥേഥ വാപി ഉചിതതാം ആയാന്തി കിം താവതാ ക്ലിഷ്ട്വാ തർക്കപഥേ പരം തവ വപുഃ ബ്രഹ്മാഖ്യമന്യേ പുനഃ ചിത്താർദ്രത്വമൃതേ വിചിന്ത്യ ബഹുഭിഃ സിദ്ധ്യന്തി ജന്മാന്തരൈഃ ത്വദ്ഭക്തിസ്തു കഥാരസാമൃതഝരീ നിർമ്മജ്ജനേന സ്വയം സിദ്ധ്യന്തി വിമല പ്രബോധ പദവീം അക്ലേശതസ്ത്വന്വതി സദ്യ സിദ്ധികരീ ജയത്യയി വിഭോ സൈവാസ്തു മേ ത്വത്പദ പ്രേമ പ്രൗഢിരസാർദ്രതാ ദ്രുതതരം വാതാലയാധീശ്വര.
Very good. Just one small correction. 10th stanza, second line, last word, second line. I heard it as Twanvati. It's Tanvati. Maybe I heard it Tanvati, right?
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right. So we'll do number 3. So Sita, can you do number 3?
Yeah, sure. पठन्तो नामानि प्रमदभरसिन्धौ निपतिताः स्मरन्तो रूपं ते वरदकथयन्तो गुणकथाः चरन्तो ये भक्ताः त्वयि खलु रमन्ते परममून् अहं धन्यान् मन्ये समधिगत सर्वाभिलषितान् गदक्लिष्टं कष्टं तव चरण सेवारभसभरेऽपि अनासक्तं चित्तं भवति बत विष्णो कुरु दयाम् भवत्पादाम्बोजस्मरणरसिको नाम निवहान् अहं गायं कुहचन विवत्सामि विजने कृपा ते जाता चेत् किमिव न हि लभ्यं तनुभृतां मदीयक्लेशौघप्रशमनदसा नाम कियती न के लोकेऽस्मिन् अनिसमयि शोकाभिरहिताः भवद्भक्ता मुक्ताः सुखगतिम् आसक्ता विदधते मुनिप्रौढारूढाः जगति खलु गूढात्मगतयो भवत्पादाम्बोजस्मरणविरुजो नारदमुखाः चरन्ति सस्वैरं सततपरिनिर्भातपरचित् सदानन्दद्वैतप्रसरपरिमग्नाः किमपरम्
So that last line, parimagnah, that instead of saying magnaha, you put that ih sound there. Parimagnah kimaparam.
किमपरिमग्नः किमपरम् भवद्भक्तिस्फीता भवतु मम सैव प्रशमयेत् अशेषक्लेशौघं न खलु हृदि सन्देहकणिका न चेद्वासस्योक्ति तव च वचनं नैगमवचो भवेन्मिथ्या रथ्या पुरुषवचन प्रायमखिलम्
Sorry, the third line, vyasas yoktihi, that visarga sound comes there, okay?
Oh yeah. So the last five, I missed the class, but I didn't have time to go back, so I don't have all the breakups, so I will read a lot of mistakes.
Okay, no worries. Anyone else wants to do the last five? Anita, try Pandrela.
I'm not so sure, Rajesh ji.
Okay.
I mean, if anyone wants to, otherwise I'll try. Yeah.
Anyone wants to do it? Radha, you want to do it?
Sure. भवद्भक्तिस्तावत् प्रमुखमधुना त्वद्गुण्यरसात् किमप्यारूढाश्चेदत् अखिल परितापप्रशमनी पुनश्चान्ते स्तान्ते विमल परिबोधा बोधतं दयमिलन रुहान्नाद्वैतं दिशति किमथ प्रार्थव्यम् अपरम्.
The third line joins with the fourth line, right? So paribododayamilan mahananda dvaitam dishati. It flows together, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
परिबोधामिल महानाद्वैत्यं दिशति किमत प्रार्थ्यम् अपरम् विधूय क्लेशन्मे कुरु चरणयुग्मं द्रुतरसं भवत् क्षेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि च ते पूजनविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अथ ते पादतुलसी परिघ्राणे प्राणं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते.
I think you lost that, and the tune jumped one line. So this eighth one you can start fresh there. Prabhutadi, yeah.
Viduyala.
That one that's fine. I think you go to the next one. I said in the Viduya Kleshanme, I think on the tune just slipped like to the next line.
Okay.
That's okay.
Prabhuta divyadi prasapa chalite mamaka hruditvadiyam tadrupam paramasuka chidrupam udiyat uddanchadromancho galita bahu हर्षाश्रुनिहो यतान् विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशम pīdā paribhavan.
In the first line after mamaka hridi, there is a comma. Okay, I think you said two together.
Mamaka hridi.
Yeah. Okay.
Tvadiyam
It's okay. So you don't have to
tadrupam.
repeat it. Repeat panna
No.
you can just keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Marudvehaadishcha tvayi kalu param chopi sukino bhavat snehi soham subahu paritapye cha kimidam akirteste mabhut varada gadabharam prashamayan bhavat bhoktastastam tastam jutati karumam kamsa dhamana.
The last line, Bhavad Bhakto Tamsam Jhatiti Kurumam.
Bhavat
Bhavad Bhakto Tamsam. Yeah, Jhatiti.
Chimukter bhuyorbhi tavahi karuna yamadudiyat aham tavaddeva prahita vividartha pralapitah puraklupte pade varada tavaneshyami divasan yata shakti vyaktam natinuti nisheva virachayan.
Brahmani Namaha. All right. So let's start with Dashakam 4. So Dashakam 4, the topic is Ashtanga Yoga Varnanam, which is description of Ashtanga Yoga, and Yoga Siddhi Varnanam. So how do you attain that Ashtanga Yoga Siddhi using Ashtanga Yoga, right? That's the Dashakam 4. So the first 3 chapters that Dashakam we saw were kind of the 4-liner tunes. So now we'll start coming into the 2-liner tunes. So this will start, we'll have some tune into this, right? So you can try your best as much you're able to, right? Okay, so Mridulaji, you can be a student for the first half, and let me see, Gayatri, you can be a student for the first half, okay? So stanza 1. Kalyata mama kurushvatavatim kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya spashtamashtabida yoga charyaya pushtaya shutavatushtimapnuyam. Just to kind of go through the sequence in which Bhattacharya has written these Dashakams, right? So like we saw, Dashakam 1 was talking about the glory of the Lord. Dashakam 2 said the Lord whose glory I spoke about, let me describe the form of the Lord, which is what we saw in Dashakam 2. Then we said to that Lord, the devotee who is an ideal devotee, how should that devotee be? Who is that ideal devotee and how do you become that ideal devotee was Dashakam number 3. Now Dashakam 4 is saying, when you're becoming that ideal devotee as described in Dashakam 3, to attain the Lord who was described in 1, through the path of Ashtanga Yoga, what is the path? So how do you attain that Lord? Using the path of Ashtanga Yoga, right? That is the description of this chapter. A lot of technical things will come in here. Now, the yoga by default, when we think of yoga, many people think of the stretches that we do, right? The asanas that we do, or the pranayama that we do. That's what people think of it as yoga. Yoga comes from the root word, which means yuj. Yuj means union with God. That is the ultimate aim of yoga, is to merge with the Lord. That is the path, the meaning of yoga. Now, how you become is the whole Ashtanga Yoga, which is the 8 limbs of the yoga through which we'll go through here, right? So here, Bhattacharya first starts off by saying, in the Dashakam 3 also, you saw, we requested saying that, you make my legs strong so I can visit your temples. You make my ears better so I can hear your stories and incarnations and everything. You make my hands better so I can offer puja to you. So he's talked about the importance of the health and prayers to the Lord so that we can actually worship the Lord. So here he starts off by saying, like we say, you help me, help you, right? So similarly, he says, you please bless me with the necessary health so I can perform this Ashtanga Yoga, because that is not going to be easy, as we are going to see. So to perform the Ashtanga Yoga, you first bless me, right, with good health so I can do this Ashtanga Yoga and eventually merge into you, right? That's how he starts with the first stanza. So Kalyatam mama kurushva tavatim im sound, comma, Kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya spashtam ashta vidha yoga charyaya, comma, pushtayashu tava tushtimapnuyam. Kalyata mama kurushva tavatim kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya Spashtamashtavidha yogacharyaya pushtaya shrutavatushtimapnuyam.
Kalyatam mama kurushatavatim kalyate bhavatupasanam yaya spashtamashtavidha yogacharyaya pushtaya shutavatushtimapnuyam.
2 times here.
Kalyatam mama kurushvatavatim kalyate bhavatupasanam yaya spashtamashtavidha yogacharyaya pushtaya shutavatushti mapnuyam.
No, Gayatri, you're on mute.
Kalyatam mama kurshvatavatim kalyate bhavatupasanam yaya spashtamashtavidhayogacharyaya pushtaya sutavatushtimapniyam. Kalyatam mama kurushvatavatim kalyate bhavatupasanam yaya spashtamashtavidhayogacharyaya pushtaya sutavatushtimapniyam.
Answer 2. Brahmacharya dridhatadibhiryamaihi aplamadiniyamaischa pavitaah kurmahe dridamami sukhasanam pankajadyamapi va bhavatmaraah. So the 8 limbs, it starts with yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. So the first 4 limbs are to prepare the body, right? That is what the first 4 limbs are, to make yourself ready. That's the first 4 limbs of the yoga. Then the next 3, 5, 6, 7 are pratyahara, dharana, dhyana. Those are the 3 which will take you to the final one, which is samadhi. So samadhi is the 8th limb of the Ashtanga yoga, and that's where you are trying to reach, because that's where you get merged with the Lord. So the first 4 prepare you for it for 5, 6, and 7, and by doing 5, 6, and 7, you go to number 8, right? So here, Bhattacharya is talking very quickly to some of these things, but I'll spend some time on it, right? So, and before I always say this chapter, I always give a disclaimer clause, right? Saying that I don't practice any of this, right? Even step number 1, right? So because that is very important, because when I'm teaching, you shouldn't assume that I have done all these things, right? So even I don't, because these are extremely complicated and very hard, right? So the first one, which he starts off with, is what is called as yama. So yama means is how you are behaving, the things that you do which impact others, right? So it starts off with things like ahimsa, right? So not doing any physical or mental injuries to others, number 1. Number 2 is satya. You have to always speak the truth, right? Number 3, you should not be, like stealing or any of that stuff, right? And then this also says no acceptance of gifts also. Even if somebody gives you a gift, you should not take any gift. So it's how you mold yourself as it relates to others. That is the first phase of the first limb of the yoga. And this Ashtanga yoga is progressive. So you have to do the first one before you go to the second one, before you go to the third one in that sequence, right? You can't jump and go to number 4 and saying, I know how to do pranayama, let me go there. It says you have to go through the sequence. That is the first one, yama. The second one is niyama. So niyama is kind of you're looking in, right? How you should live your life, the process of living your life, right? So the first one it talks about in that is cleanliness. So both inward cleanliness and outward cleanliness. Number 2 is be content with what you have. So not wanting more, just be content with what you have. Number 3, it says is you have to do the necessary, you have to study the necessary scriptures, you have to do the necessary austerities and penance and all that stuff to get yourself ready to be able to go advance to the next step, right? And then you should also worship the Lord. All of that comes in the second one, which is niyama. Then the third one, which he talks about here, is asana. So asana, we all know, right? This is all the different poses that we do in yoga, and it's primarily talking about getting your body ready, because in yoga you have to meditate for several hours. So you should be able to sit in one place for several hours, right? Which is extremely important. So here he talks about primarily sukhasana, padmasana. So give me the strength so I can actually learn all these things, and now focus on the asana part. So that's the first 3 that he talks about here: yama, niyama, and asana. Brahmacharya Dridhatadibhir yamaihi. Dridhatadibhir yamaihi. So the ra that is there, we're going to remove it. put a visarga and comma, yamaihi. Next word starts with the a. Aplavadi niyamaischa pavitaha kurmahe dridhamami sukhasanam, comma, pankajadhyamapi va bhavatparaha. Brahmacharya dridhatadibhiryamaihi aplavadi niyamaischa pavitaha kurmahe dridhamami sukhasanam pankajadhyamapi va bhavatparaha.
Brahmacharya
Rajeshji,
dridhatapir. Sorry.
Good.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
Brahmacharya drudatabir maihi.
Dibir.
There is a
Dibir
ra.
yamaihi. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a ra after that. So we
Yeah,
are
so-
not saying that ra.
Yeah, so what we do is, see, when you're stopping there, the ra is essentially for it's a ir plus a a, okay, and the ir is actually just a visarga. When you join that, it becomes a ir. So you remove that ra and you put a visarga and a comma there, so it becomes dibir yamaihi. You put a visarga there, and the next
Okay.
word starts with the a, aplavadi.
Aplavadi niyamaischa pavitaha.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Is
Thank
it a
you.
long a or a short a?
Aplavadi, longer.
Can I go?
Yeah, good.
Brahmacharya dridhatadibhiryamaihi aplavadini aymaischa pavitaha kurmahe dridhamami sukhasanam pangajatyamapi va bhavatparaha brahmacharya dridhatadibhiryamaihi aplavadini niyamaischa pavitaha kurmahe dridhamami sukhasanam pangajatyamapi va bhavatparaha.
ब्रह्मचर्य दृढधादिभिर्यमैः आप्लवादिनयमैश्च पाविताः कुर्महे दृढममि सुखासनं पङ्गजात्यमपि वा भवत्पराः ब्रह्मचर्य दृढधादिभिर्यमैः आप्लवादिनयमैश्च पाविताः कुर्महे दृढममि सुखासनं पङ्गजात्यमपि वा भवत्पराः.
Answer 3. तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषया तथापहृत्या स्महे भवदुपासनोन्मुखाः. So yama, niyama, asana. That's the 3 we are seeing. Number 4 is pranayama. So pranayama, you all know, and I'm sure a lot of you might be doing different types of pranayama also. But here it says, you using the Tara mantra, you do the inhaling, you do the containing of the breath, exhaling, and all of that stuff. And the reason for doing that is to get, your mind and senses, to start beginning to control all of that stuff, right? So mind and breath control that you do with the pranayama, and prana vayu, which is the prana, the life force which is there in your body. How do you control the flow of that through your body? So this is the fourth one, which is talking about pranayama. But before even you go to pranayama, it's important that you do asana first, because you should be able to not just do 5 or 6, you have to do several, right? So to be able to do it, you should be able to sit in one place in the Sukhasana or Padmasana pose, right? So that is very important. So that is the number 4, pranayama. So like we said, the first 4 are to condition your body. And once you do that, then you do the next 3, which we're going to see. So then number 5, which he talks about, so now is where things start getting difficult, right? So number 5 is called as pratyahara. So pratyahara, you have to think of it as your external sensory organs, right? Like nose, your taste, eyes, ears, all of that. How do you keep it under control, right? Which is very hard, right? So I'm sitting in the puja room and praying, and my wife is cooking in the kitchen. I can already start smelling what she's making, right? Because that's the amount of control most of us have, right? We don't have that control, but it says you should be able to control your senses. Now, that doesn't mean you ignore it, because when you try to, if you completely avoid, it's also not possible. So when some smell is coming when you're praying, but you can't say, I'm not going to smell it. I'm not going to smell it. You can't do it, because at some point it's going to take over. But the importance is, even when that comes, how do you overcome that and continue the process you are doing? You are not bothered by it, right? So same thing, you can also think of other senses, right? I talked about the smell. Other thing is ears, right? When you're praying and somebody's watching TV, somebody's yelling, how do you not get distracted? How do you not, even your sensory temperatures? That's why the people who are sadhus who are there, they can meditate at, at any temperatures, right? Because they've gone through the process of keeping the senses under control. So that is the fifth one, which is getting your pratyahara, which is getting your outer senses under control. So taram antar anuchintya, three different words, but you can say it together. Taram antar anuchintya santatam, comma, prana vayum abhiyamya nirmalaha, indriyani. So this next word, next sentence, we are going to say it together. So if your book has 3 and 4 lines, then you put a plus to join them. If it's just one line, then you say the whole thing together. So Vishaya Datha Pahrityasmahe. So we are not going to break it. So Vishaya Datha Pahrityasmahe Bhavat Upasanon Mukhaha. Taramantaranu Chintya Santatam Pranavayumabhiyamya Nirmalaha Indriyani Vishaya Datha Pahrityasmahe Bhavadupasanon Mukhaha.
तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषया तत पहृत्यास्महे भवतु पासनो मुखाः.
At that line, the middle of the line, when you're trying to say it, it kind of comes under that pahrityasmahe, that when the it is coming, right? That's kind of like the middle of the line. So Indriyani Vishayadata Pahrityasmahe Bhavadupasanon Mukhaha.
Okay, thank you. Taramantaranuchindya santatam pranavayumabhiyamya nirmalaha indriyani vishaya tata pahritasma. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can you please?
Yeah. Indriyani Vishayadata Pahrityasmahe.
Okay. Indriyani vishaya tata prahityasmahe bhavatu pasano mukhaha.
Close enough. I think you're waiting till tyasmahe and then you're saying bhavadupasanon. That middle kind of comes in at the it point is the middle. Pahrityasmahe. That's all. No worries. But
Thank you.
तारमन्त्रनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायु अभिमन्यम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषया दत बहुर्त्यास्मके भवतु वासनोन्मुखाः तारमन्त्रनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायु अभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषया दता बहुर्दात्यास्मके भवतु वासनोन्मुखाः.
that first line, Gayatri. Taramantaranu. I think you're saying it as an ir instead of a ra. Taramantaranu.
Okay. Taramantharanu chintya santatam.
Yeah. Stanza 4. Aspute vapushite prayatnato dharaye madhishanam muhurmuhu tena bhakti rasamantaradhratam udvahema bhavadankri chintakaha. So we saw the pratyahara, which you said was keeping the outer senses under control, withdrawing the senses from the objects, right? That was number 4. So now comes the even more difficult, because like I said, this all builds on each other, right? So you can control your senses, right? Nobody is at home, nobody is cooking, nobody is watching TV, no distractions, temperature is ideal. You're sitting in your room or in your prayer room and you're actually meditating or you're trying to meditate. Your mind still will go all over the place, right? Your mind will still go and say, oh, the dinner I had yesterday, biryani was spicy or something. The mind will still continue to wander, right? You continue to wonder, what is my son doing right now? He took the car. Right? So you cannot control that. So while your external senses are relatively easy to control, your mind is very, very hard to control because it has got a full freedom to be able to go wherever it wants and travel all over the world, right? So this process, this dharana, is about how do you get your mind trained to be able to meditate, right? And this is slightly different from the next one, dhyana, because dhyana is, think of it as you're already in that state. So dharana is how do you explicitly or intentionally focus your mind to meditate. That is the process of this dharana. So here he says, of course, the the best way to do this, he also, but also says at the very end also here is one other advantage of doing this is I will experience your devotion and get your blessings, because you're trying to focus on something. Now you can focus on anything you want, right? You can just focus on just a light, right? That's also perfectly fine. But it's very difficult for us to just focus because our mind will still wander. So he says you start focusing on the form of the Lord, right? He says that is the best way to actually focus is you first start Dasakam 2 we saw, which we start with, which I said was a Dhyana Slokam, right? Pretty much, because it was describing the entire form of the Lord. Same thing we're going to see in Dasakam 100 also. So he says you focus on the form of the Lord. And that way, even if your mind wanders, you're only wandering within the form of the Lord, whether you're looking at the face or you're going and saying, okay, he's wearing pitambaram, yellow color, oh, I see his feet. So that's okay, because you're still focusing on the Lord. So that is the next step, which is to get into and this dharana will continue to one more stanza, but this is to get your mind under control so it doesn't wander. So you start getting ready for meditation. Aspute vapushi te prayatnato, comma, dharayema dishanam muhur muhuhu, tena bhakti rasam. I'm just breaking it so it's easy for you. Tena bhakti rasam antaradratam. So the mu that is there, we'll first put a im and a comma. Antaradratam. Next line becomes u. Udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha. So always meditating on your feet. Aspute vapushite prayatnato dharaye madishanam muhur muhuhu tena bhakti rasamantarardratam udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha.
Aspute vapushite prayatnato dharaye mathishanam muhurmuhu tena bhaktirasam andaradratam udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha. Aspute vapushite prayatnato dharaye mathishanam muhurmuhu tena bhaktirasam andaradratam udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha.
Ashpute vapushite prayatnato dharayema dishanam muhurmuhu tena bhakti rasam antaradratham udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha. Aspute vapushite prayatnato dharayema dishanam muhurmuhu tena bhakti rasam
So that word thena bhakti rasam antarardratam.
tena bhakti rasam andaratratham udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha.
Stanza 5. Bisputa vayava bheda sundaram twadvapussu chirashilana ashramam manasi chintayamahe dhyana yoga niratastvadashrayaha. So he says, even this, right, is not going to be easy. Even this dharana is not going to be easy because it's, many of us, right, not generalizing. You sit and then you try to think of one God for 5 minutes without opening your eyes, right? And see how many times you start losing focus of the form of the Lord itself, right? You start losing focus, which he says is fine. He says that is how it is going to be initially, right? But he says you have to do this over a really long period of time. Do it repeatedly with ashrayaha, with complete surrender to you, O Lord. Because when I do that, eventually the form of yours is going to become very clear. Right? I says that is what is proof. He says it has happened to people. Nobody is going to suddenly start and then being able to exactly zoom in on the face of the Lord or the feet and then do that. It's not going to happen. So in fact, later on when we go to the 90s, so Krishna gives advice to Uddhava in the Uddhava Gita, where he talks about how to meditate, how to do this dharana, right? And in that he talks about how to imagine the form of the Lord at the tip of your nose. So Nasagriha, the tip of your nose, you imagine the form of the Lord in Chaturbhujam, in that small form. And then you take that Lord in and then you rest him on your chest where the Kamalam is then formed. But he says first when you start, you just think of the full form of the Lord, like zoom out, right? It's easy. You can just imagine if you're worship, you're thinking about Krishna, you can imagine a blue color, somebody with Chaturbhujam. Very easy to imagine because you're zooming out. Then he says, when you get control of that, then you start zooming in. Then you start going more in, and then pick up the face and just meditate on the face. Or just pick up the feet and meditate on just the feet for a time. He says, by doing this over a period of time, you'll be able to then start seeing the Lord much more clearly because your mind comes under control. So immediately when you start off on day one, don't try to pick one point and then try to focus your mind. He says, because it's not going to be possible. So you just imagine the full form of the Lord, which is very easy because you don't have to imagine exactly where what is happening, right? So that's what he says. He says, eventually by seeking refuge in you, please bless me so that I'm able to then really focus on you and then attain this dharana, because that is important before you get to dhyana, right? So Visputa Vayava Bheda Sundaram, comma, Tvad Vapuhu, put is Tvad Vapus, Suchira Sheelanavashat, Ashramam. So without any effort, eventually you will get it. Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe, comma, Dhyana Yoga Niratas Twadashrayaha. Visputa Vayavabheda Sundaram Twadvapussuchirashilana Vashat Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe Dhyana Yoga Niratas Twadashrayaha.
Vispudavayavabheda sundaram Twadvapus Suchirashilana Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe Dhyana Yoga Niratastvata Vispudavayavabheda sundaram Twadvapus Chirashilana Vashat Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe Dhyana Yoga Niradastvata Shrayaha.
Vishputavayave Veda Sundaram Tvatvapusuchirasila Vashat Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe Dhyana Yoga Nirastastwadhashrayaham. Vishputavayave Veda Sundaram Tvatvapusuchirasila Vashat Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe Dhyana Yoga Niratastvadashrayaham.
Stanza 6. Dhyayatam sakalamurtimi drishim unmishan madurata hritatmanam sandramodarasaroopamantaram brahmaroopamayiteva bhasate. So I finished dharana. Now the last one before you get the samadhi is dhyana. So the dhyana is, so dharana is like a process you do, which is I am now meditating on the form of the Lord or anything. That is the process you're doing. Dhyana is a state you reach when you are fully done with dharana, right? That is what it is. So which means that you are now also progressing in that, right? So which means that you are not now sitting, when you sit to meditate, you are not saying, okay, let me first think on the full form of the Lord. Let me now zoom in. Let me now look at his face. You are not doing that, right? You sit and then you get into that mode of dhyana where your senses are in control, your mind is in control, your body, your breath is under control, You're not worried about, is my leg paining, right? Is my back hurting? And you're not trying to focus, but you're already in that state, right? You're already in the state where you're constantly thinking, number one. And number two, you don't have to necessarily now think about the form of the Lord, because that's what even Krishna says is, first you imagine the Saguna form of mind, which is the form of mind which is in the form you know. Eventually, you'll get to the Nirguna form of mind, which is no form, right? So in dhyana, he says, when you reach that position on the status of dhyana, you are not trying to say, I'm going to zoom in on the hands, zoom in on the legs or the eyes. You are not thinking about anything. You reach that state, right? When you're not, that's why it says here, the Brahma Rupam, that the Brahman form of yours, which is formless, you are meditating on that, which means you're meditating on nothing, right? You should reach that state. And that is the state, the final state before you get to that Samadhi state, which is the state of dhyana. So dhyayatam sakala murtim idrishim. So the mu that is there, we break it, put a idrishim, put a im there and a comma. Next word starts with the u. Unmishan madhurata.
Can you please repeat that? Sakala Murti.
Dhyayatam sakala murtim idrishim. Im. Idrishim, comma. Next word starts with the u then. Unmishan madhurata khritatmanam sandra moda rasa rupamantaram, comma. Brahma rupamai teva bhasate. Dhyayatam sakalamurtimidrishim unmishan madhurata hritatmanam sandramodara rupamantaram brahma rupamai teva bhasate.
ध्यायतां सकलमूर्तिं मीदृशीं उन्मिषन् मधुरताहृतात्मनां सान्द्रमोदरसरूपमान्दरं ब्रह्मरूपमयि तेव भासते ध्यायतां सकलमूर्तिम् ईदृशीम् उन्मिषन् मधुरताहृतात्मनां सान्द्रमोदरसरूपमान्दरं Brahma Rupamai Teva Pasate.
Dhyayatham sakala murtim idrisham
Idrishim.
Dhyayatam sakala murtim idrishim unmishan madhuradahridatmanam sandramodharasa rupamandaram Brahma Rupamai Deva Bhasute Bhasate Dhyayatham Sakala Murtim Idrishim Unmishan Madhuradhagridhatmanam Sandra Moda Rasarupamandharam Brahma Rupamai Deva Bhasate.
Stanza 7. We'll just switch halfway. Just see here. Shashi Rekha Garu, you can be a student. And Ravi irkela aniki on the iPhone ungadane. Ravi, are you the one which is iPhone? I don't know who iPhone is. Okay, Anita, you can be a student. Okay. Stanza 7.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Irkela. Okay, so you can be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, unmute பண்றதுக்கு கொஞ்சம் டைம் எடுத்து சார்.
No worries. Tatsamaswadana rupinim stithim tvatsamadhimayi vishwanayaka ashrita punaratah parichyutau arabhe mahicha dharanadikam. So once you reach this progress through this, you reach the dharana stage and then you reach the dhyana stage. Now, what happens is a lot of people in this dhyana stage, they end up tripping on, which means they end up losing from there. And, a lot of examples you see, right, about, Vishwamitra was, in penance and Menaka or somebody comes and disrupts him, right? So a lot of these disruptions start happening in the dhyana stage, so there are multiple reasons why it happens. So one is you might end up falling asleep when you reach that extreme state of dhyana. It says you might actually go into sleep. That is one. Two, some external distractions can always happen. And three, sometimes it says that the state you are in, you start enjoying that state. See, the whole idea of the samadhi is to not like anything. You should like want to merge into the Lord. But sometimes you reach a state in the dhyana state where you actually start enjoying that state. So when that happens, you start getting pleasure, which means you start doing things to get more pleasure. So you kind of, your senses don't get under control, right? So those are the different reasons where he says you drop off from the dhyana stage. And if you drop off from this, then it's not like I can start dhyana again. It says you have to go down one level, get dharana again under control before you can go back to dhyana. And we'll see in the 19th Dasakam about this prachetas who start meditating underwater, that they love the meditation. So they actually are saying to the Lord, I don't want you to come in front of me because I'm loving the process of meditation, right? So because if you come in front of me, then my meditation goes away, right? I'll now start looking at you. He says, so that is also another reason why they say that dhyana can break, which means if it happens, then I go down one step, you have to do the dharana and then come back to dhyana. So, yeah. Tat samaswadana rupinim stitim, tvat samadhimayi vishwanayaka ashritaha, put a F, ashritah punarataha, put a F again, punaratah parichyutau. So that after that parichyuta, you have the va, va. So remove that va, make it parichyutau, and then put a comma. Next word becomes arabhemahi. So parichyutau arabhemahi cha dharanadikam. Tatsamaswadana rupinim stitim tvatsamadhimayi vishwanayaka ashritah punaratah parichyutau arabhemahi cha dharanadikam.
Tatsamaswadana rupinim siddhim Tvatsamadhimayi Vishwanayaka Ashridah Punarada Prachudo Arabe Magishadaranadikam. That's 2 times, right? Tatsamaswadana Rupinim Stidhim Tvatsamadhimayi Vishwanayaka Ashridah Punarada Prachudo Arabe Magishadaranadikam.
Tatsamaswadana rupinim sthitim tvatsamadhimayi vishwanayaka ashritah punaratah parichyutau arabhemahi cha dharanadikam. Tatsamaswadana rupinim sthitim tvatsamadhimayi vishwanayaka ashritah punaratah parichyutau arabhemahi cha dharanadikam.
That's 8. Ittamabhyasana nirbharollasattvat paratma sukha kalpitotsavaha mukta bhakta kula maulitam gataha sancharema shukanaradaadhivate. So once you now capture this dhyana, so when you think of all the great Mahans and Rishis who even we know, right, Ramana Maharishi and all of those people, so they all could get into that mode of dhyana for hours together, right, and be uninterrupted with everything that is going on. And he says, but Bhattiprabhu also saying, so once you reach that stage of dhyana, then you also become like the great devotees and others, right, who are wandering around without any attachment. So no attachment to a place, no attachment to things, none of that is there. You're completely wandering around freely without any worries and always in that mode of dhyana and always being in the bliss of the Lord, just like Shukha Brahmam and Narada and several others, right, who have been there. So think of all the people who have reached samadhi, right? All the people who have reached samadhi, like Adi Shankara, etc., have gone through this. So they have all reached the stage of dhyana, which means they're wandering around just thinking about the Lord and not bothered by anything else. So ittam abhyasana nirbharolasat. Nirbharolasat. Il and a la, bharolasat. So that sat, when the it is coming, that is halfway point, okay? Then you put a plus there, bharolasat. Tvat paratma sukha kalpitotsavaha. So those 2 lines are together. Mukta bhakta kula maulitam gataha, comma, sancharema shuka narada divate. Ittamabhyasana nirbharollasattvatparatma sukha kalpitotsavaha mukta bhakta kula maulitam gataha sancharema shukanarada divate.
Ittamapyasana nirbalolasattatparatma sugha kalpidotsawaha mukta bhakta kula maulidam kadaha sancharema suganarada divadan. Ittamapyasana nirbalolasattatparatma sugha kalpidotsawaha mukta bhakta kula maulidam kadaha sancharema suganarada divadan.
Ravi, on the first line, nirbharo, and the ra sound, nirbharollasat.
Okay.
Okay.
திருப்பி சொல்லுவா
And the underline, but just underline.
Iddhamapyasana nirbharolasatvatparatmasuga kalpidotsavaha.
Yeah, you got it.
इत्थमभ्यसन निर्भरोल्लसत्वत्परात्मसुखकल्पितोत्सवाः मुक्तकुलमौलितां गताः सञ्चरेम शुखनारदादिवत् इत्थमभ्यसन निर्भरोल्लसत्वत्परात्मसुखकल्पितोत्सवाः मुक्तभक्तकुलमौलितां गताः सञ्चरेम शुखनारदादिवत्.
Answer 9. Tvatsamadhi vijaye tu yah punaha mangshu moksharasika kramena va yoga vashyamanilam shadashrayaihi unnayat yaja sushumnayashanaihi. So now, so you've gone through this entire 7 angams of the yoga. Saptanga, you are finished. Then you finally, when you reach this dhyana is also done, then you reach the final state, which is the state of samadhi, right? So the state of, once you reach the state of samadhi, right, then we'll come further about what you can do from there. But anyway, that is the final state of Ashtanga yoga. There's no state beyond that, right? So this is, you're completely forgotten about yourself. You're only thinking of the Paramatma, and it's a complete still, the mind becomes still, and you're already integrated to the broader cosmos, right? To the universal soul. You are now part of that. So you still have freedom and everything, and we'll see that, but you're essentially part of that one soul. You don't feel any difference that you are a unique person. Now, you know about this, the various nadis that are there and the chakras that are there, right? So the reason for also having the breath control is to be able to move your pranavayu the way you want, right? So all of this you develop as you go through this. Sometimes when you look at all this, you say this is too complicated, right? It's impossible for us to do it, right? That's why Narayaneeyam is one very good advantage. First, they'll tell you the hard part. Then later on, when you come to the end of Narayaneeyam, it will tell you the easiest way to attain all this. You don't have to go through all these challenges. But we'll have to go through. We have to first understand what is hard. Otherwise, the easy one will not have any value, right? So it says, once you reach this, and then you have your prana vayu under control, then you have the Sushumna Nadi, which is the Nadi which is going straight up from the base of your spine to the top of your head, right? So he says, you bring your prana vayu up the Sushumna Nadi through the various chakras and come and bring it and make it stop between your eyes. Right? So that is how you should be able to control your breath so much, the prana vayu so much that you should be able to bring it up and then come and make it stop, right between the eyes. And we'll see why we are stopping right between the eyes and why we are not taking it out. So that's the Agneya chakra, and you have the Sahasrara chakra, which is your crown chakra, Brahmarandra chakra, which is on top. But it says you come and then you make it and pause it there, right? Because of the control you have already achieved with the yoga. So Tvat Samadhi Vijaye Tu Yaha is there, put a Yaf. Punaha, put a Visarga and comma there after Punaha. Then the next word Mangshu will have a ir, so you can remove that ir. That's why you put the Visarga. Mangshu Moksha Rasikaha, put a ih sound to join. Rasikah Kramenava Yoga Vashyamanilam Shadashrayaihi. So the ru that you have there, that we're going to remove. So put a Visarga Shadashrayaihi and a comma. I'll repeat once again. So Yoga Vashyam Anilam Shadashrayaihi, comma. Then the ru goes away. It becomes un. It starts with the u. Unna yat yaja sushumnaya shanaihi. So you go take it up through the 6 chakras through the through the Sushumna Nadi. Tvatsamadhi vijaye tu yah punaha mangshu moksha rasika kramena va yoga vashyamanilam shadashrayaihi unnayat yaja sushumna yashanaihi.
Tatsamadhi vijaye duyah punaha mangshu moksha rasika kramena va yogavasya manilam shadasrayaihi unnayat yaja sushumnaya sanaihi. Tatsamadhi vijaye duyah punaha mangshu moksha rasika kramena va yogavasya manilam shadasrayaihi unnayat yajasu sushumnaya sanaihi.
Vatsamadhi vijayetu yaf punaha mangshu moksharasika kramena va yogavashyamanilam shadashrayaihi unnayat yajasushum nayashanaihi. Vatsamadhi vijayetu yaf punaha mangshu moksharasika kramena va yogavashyamanilam shadashrayaihi unnayat sushumna yashanaihi. It is sushum, right?
Yeah, Sushumna Nadi, right? So Sushumna Yashanaihi.
Yashanaihi, okay.
So there are like 101 nadis, which are like channels of energy, which finally come and reach your Brahmarandra chakra on the top. So if your pranavayu is going to flow through at the time of death, when the pranavayu goes through any of those other nadis, that means you're not going to get liberated. Only if you're going through the Sushumna nadi, you're going to get liberated. So when you see people, we see in movies, right? People going into samadhi. So they go, they sit, and then they actually build something around that because they're done, right? So and then they eventually the jivatma leaves their body, right? So because they already reached that state, so once they reach the state, they are then able to move the pranavayu through the Sushumna Nadi, and then we'll see what's going to happen next. So that they are able to now, that's why you don't know when the soul has left the body at that time. When you're putting them in the state of Samadhi and you build something around, they're still alive, right, at that time. But later on, they can decide when the soul has to leave the body. That's what is going to come in the next one, right? So, stanza 10. Linga dehamapi santyajannato liyate tvai pare niragraha urdvaloka kutuki tumurdhataha sardameva karanair niriyate. So once you reach that state, right? So now you bring the pranavayu up to your Agneya chakra, right, middle of your eyes. Now you have choices, but pretty much this means you are liberated now, right? You can decide how you want to get liberated, right? So it says there are 2 modes of liberation. One more, and some of this, some terms I'm going to say in this and the next stanzas are going to become more relevant when we talk through the next set of chapters about Brahman, other worlds and other things. But for now, you just follow along, right? So one is to say, I am just ready to go merge into the Lord. I don't want to do anything else. That's one, right? So that is called Videha Mukti. Mukti is liberation. Videha Mukti is you just completely giving up everything and going and merging. So there is also called as a Krama Mukti. So the Krama Mukti is saying you now can go, there are other worlds, planes of worlds between where the Bhulokam is and where Brahma is sitting in the Satya Lokam, which we'll see later. So you'll have the ability to go through those worlds and spend time there as needed. So you have that flexibility. So you talk about, when we see later on, we talk about how Narada is coming from this there to there, and different people, some people are moving around different worlds because they all have reached that state where they're able to move or traverse between regions, right? So you also have the choice. Now, why you need that choice, right? So it's because, and we'll see some of that later, but anyway, so the body, there is the body which we are in right now is called as the gross body because it has got a lot of things, right? This is the stula shariram which we live. So even when your atma soul leaves, it needs a carrier. So that carrier is called as a sukshma shariram, which has got different layers of it, which we won't get into details here. You'll see when the creation happens, we see some of that. But anyway, when it leaves, so now you decide. If you want to go completely merge with the Paramatma and you want to do nothing to do with anything else, then you have to let the soul go out between your eyes through the Agneya chakra. If you want to get elevated and be able to traverse through all the other things and eventually go merge into Brahma and then eventually merge into the Paramatma, then you take it through the Sahasrara chakra, which is the top of the crown of your head, right? So there are like 7 places through which the soul can exit and all that stuff. But when you have this level of samadhi, you can control where it needs to go through. That's why you bring it in and then you say, like I said, you have a choice. Do I want to get liberated now and permanently merge, or do I want to get liberated and then go through some other places, right, and stay for some more time through the life or stay of Brahma? Then you decide accordingly. It says you either go through the Brahmarandra chakra or the Agneya chakra. You can take the soul off. It is completely in your hand how you want, or your decision, right, how you want to do it. So linga dehamapi santya jannatho, comma, liyate tvai pare niragraha urdhva loka kutuki tu murdhataha, comma, sardameva karanair niriyate. Linga dehamapi santya jannatho liyate tvai pare niragraha urdhva loka kutuki tu murdhataha sadameva karanair niriyate.
लिङ्गदेहमपि संत्यजन्नदो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रह ऊर्ध्वलोककुतुकीदुमूर्तदः सार्धमेव करणैर्निरीयते लिङ्गदेहमपि संत्यजन्नदो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रह ऊर्ध्वलोककुतुकीदुमूर्तदः सार्धमेव Karanai
Ravi, on the second line, or however you have it, 2 or 4 lines, the niragraha.
Nagraha.
Graha
Lingade Jannado Liyade Tvayipare Niragraha. Niragraha.
And the ha vardu and Visarga is also coming, right? So graha.
Niragraha.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
लिङ्गदेहमपि सन्त्यजन्नथो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रहः ऊर्ध्वलोककुतुकीतुमूर्धतः सार्धमेव करणैर्निरीयते लिङ्गदेहमपि सन्त्यजन्नथो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रहः ऊर्ध्वलोककुतुकीतुमूर्धतः सार्धमेव करणैर्निरीयते.
That's 11. So this Dashakam has 14 lines, 14 stanzas. Some of the most of that's why it's Dashakam means 10, which means 100 Dashakam should have 1000 stanzas, but Narayaneeyam has 1036 stanzas. So some of them have more than 10. Agniva Saravalaksha Pakshagaihi Uttarayana Jusha Cha Daivataihi Prapito Ravipadam Bhavat Paro Modavan Dhruva Padantamiyate. So now, if it is going to go through the Videha Mukti that we saw early, when it leaves through the Agneya Chakra and then it goes and merges into the Paramatman, there's no details. That's it. You're done, right? If you decide that you want to go through the other worlds, like we said, like you use a lot of souls, are also inquisitive souls, right? You want to go, you hear about all the other worlds that we're going to see in the next set of chapters when that happens. So people want, okay, I want to see how Satya Lokam is. I want to see how the other Lokams are. Then you get to go through this. So now, even that, when it is leaving through the Brahmarandra Chakra for the Krama Mukti, it says it doesn't immediately go. It goes to the plane of the sun, and I don't know exactly what portion, region that is, right? And it has to wait for Uttarayana Kalam to come for your liberation to happen. That's why for those of you who know Mahabharatam, why was Bhishma lying on the bed of arrows, right? He was also a realized soul, right? And he was waiting for Uttarayana Kalam to come, right? Because otherwise, for liberation, for this to go to this path, otherwise your soul has to say, it goes and it waits at the plane of the sun for Uttarayana Kalam to come when the sun's rays are falling on the northern hemisphere, so it can go on its journey to the next step. Right, so that's why Bhishma decided, I'll rather wait here instead of going and waiting there. Right, that's why actually Bhishma was waiting anyways. So anyway, so when that happens, so it says it now goes into the plane of the sun, and from there it traverses. Right, so it goes through different things. It goes through a planet called Vaishvanara, which is a planet of the deity of the fire. and all of that, it goes to the Shishumara circle. Finally, it reaches this Dhruva Lokam, right, which is the pole star. So it reaches that lokam, which is Mahara Lokam is there. It's 10 million yojanas, which is about 80 million miles below. And we'll see all these 14 worlds in the next chapter. So it reaches this place of Dhruva Lokam, where the soul then reaches at this point, right? So it traverses more and more, but it goes in steps. So first it reaches from this earth, it goes up and it reaches Dhruva Lokam after when the right time comes. So Agni Vasara Valaksha Pakshagaihi. So the ru that is there, you remove it, put a visarga, Pakshagaihi, comma. Next word starts with the U. Uttarayana Jusha cha Daivataihi. Prapito Ravipadam Bhavat Paro, comma. Modavan Dhruva Padantamiyate. So as it's going through the Dhruva Loka, which has got several set of other worldly planets in between, it's got the freedom or the flexibility to go anywhere it wants now, right? That is the flexibility you get, because like I said, it still has certain koshas or layers in the Sukshma Shariram, which lets you go anywhere you want, and also being able to realize what is happening there and all of that stuff. Agnivasara Valaksha Pakshagaihi Uttarayana Jusha cha Daivataihi Prapito Ravipadam Bhavat Paro Modavan Dhruva Padantamiyate.
Agnivasara Valakshavakshagaihi Uttarayana Jushasa Daivataihi Prabhito Ravipadam Bhavatparo Modavan Dhruva Padantamiyate. Agnivasara Valakshavakshagaihi Uttarayana Jushasa Daivataihi Prabhito Ravipadam Bhavatparo Modavan Dhruva Padantamiyate.
Agnivatara Pakshagaihi Uttarayana Jusha cha Daivataihi Prapito Ravipadam Bhavatparo Modavan Dhruva Padantamiyate. Agnivasara Valaksha Pakshagaihi Uttarayana Jusha cha Daivataihi Prapito Ravipadam Bhavatparo Modavan Dhruva Padantamiyate. One question I have, Rajeshi, is it Larksha, like Larksa?
Yeah, Valarksha, Valar.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stanza 12. Astito tamaharalaye yatha shesha vaktradahanoshmanabhyate iyate bhavadupashrayastadha vedasah padamatah puraivava. So now it has reached Dhruva Loka. And I said after Dhruva Loka, on top is Mahar Loka, which is 10 million yojanas, which is 80 million miles above, is the plain planetary of Mahar Loka. So there, from Mahar Loka, what happens is this another Loka on top called as the Satya Loka or Brahma Loka, where Brahma resides. So that is further several million miles above north, right? So here, what the soul now, once you reach that Mahar Loka, that is where all the sages who and others who live there have the Ashta Siddhi capability. So like we say in Hanuman Chalisa, Ashta Siddhi Navanidhi Ke Dhata, right? Which means Ashta Siddhi means you have the ability to become small, ability to become big, ability to become light, heavy, whatever you want, right? And you can instantly go from one place to another place without having to traverse through. So you all have that Ashta Siddhi capabilities. And once you are there, then you can decide to stay there as long as you want. However, you are also time bound. So there, it says the soul will go there, and then the soul will still be taking refuge in you, because that's why you are going through the process of devotion and meditation. So it's still praying to you, but it has the freedom to do what it wants. Now, from here, what it does is it eventually then goes to Brahma Loka. So Brahma Loka becomes like your transit point. You cannot directly, if you don't go through the Agneya Chakra like we discussed earlier, in which case you directly reach your destination. Otherwise, you're going through multiple stops, right? So you go to Brahma Loka, and in Brahma Loka, you have to wait, right, till the appropriate time comes, which we'll see what happens in the next one. Astitota Maharalaye Yada, comma, Shesha Vaktra Dahanoshmanardhyate Iyate Bhavat Upashrayas Tada, comma, Vedasaha put a F, Padamataha put a F, Puraivava. So here, the subtle thing it talks about here about Shesha Vaktra Dahanosh. It talks about the destruction which comes from fire from Shesha. So I won't explain what it is here because later on when we talk about the creation and the pralayam and everything which comes, I'll talk about it at that point what this means. But for now, just let it go, right? Astito tamaharaalaye yatha Shesha Vaktra Dahanoshmanardhyate ईयते भवदुपाश्रयस्तथा वेदसः पदमतः पुरैव वा
आस्तिदोदमहरालये यदा शेषवक्त्रदहनोष्मनार्त्यते ईयते भवतु भाश्रयस्तदा वेदसत्पदमः पुरैव वा आस्तिदोदमहरालये यदा शेषवक्त्रदहनोष्मनार्त्यते ईयते भवतु भाश्रयस्तदा वेदसः पदमः पुरैव वा
आस्थितोऽथमहरालये यदा शेषवक्त्रदहनोष्मनार्द्यते ईयते भवदुपाश्रयस्तदा वेधसः पदमतः पुरैव वा आस्थितोऽथमहरालये यदा शेषवक्त्रदहनोष्मनार्द्यते ईयते भवदुपाश्रयस्तदा वेधसः पदमतः पुरैव वा.
That's 13. Tatra va tava pade tava vasan prakrita pralaya eti muktata swechaya kalupura vimuchyate samvibidya jagadanda mojasa. Quickly rush through, so we finish 3 more stanzas. So now in Brahma Loka or Satya Loka, the soul is residing. Like you said, everybody who is in what is called as the Brahmandam, which consists of 14 worlds, which you're going to talk in chapter 5, they are bound by time. They all have a beginning, they all have an end, right? So is Brahma. So in the Brahma has a day, when Brahma's day gets over, which we'll cover later, everything merges into Brahma, and Brahma then merges into the Nabhi of the Lord. So here also same thing is going to happen. The soul, like I said, it's like a transit stop. You go, you wait there. You can be anywhere you want. Eventually you reach Brahma Loka, and you have to wait for that one day of Brahma to get over, which is 4.32 billion earth years. And when that period gets over, then the day of Brahma is over and Brahma merges into the Lord. So similarly, soul also will merge into Brahma and merge into the Lord. However, if you don't want to wait that much period and you reach Brahma Loka and you decide, I still want to exit out, if you have superior yogic powers, it tells that how you can still pierce through the Brahmandam and go to Vaikuntham and merge with the Lord even before Brahma's day is over. Now, it doesn't talk about how and everything, but it says with your yoga, when you have appropriate yogic power, you will be able to pierce through the Brahmandam and you can merge into it even before the day of Brahma gets over. But eventually, even if you do not go through this process, eventually at the end of the day, we'll all go to the same place only. This is only just going early, right? So, Tatrava tava padetava vasan, comma, prakrita pralaya. Prakrita pralaya is the pralayam which happens after one day of Brahma. Prakrita pralaya eti muktatham swechaya khalu pura vimuchyate, comma, samvibhidya jagadandam ojasa. So, Ravi, just one time repeat panna porom because we want to finish few more. Tatra va tava pade tava vasan prakrita pralaya eti muktatam swechaya khalu pura vimuchyate samvibhidya jagadandam ojasa.
तत्र वा पदेदवा वसन् प्राकृतप्रलयेदि मुक्तदाम् स्वेच्छया खलु पुरा विमुच्यते संविभिद्य जगदण्डमोजसा.
तत्र वा तव पदेऽथवा वसन् प्राकृतप्रलय एति मुक्ततां स्वेच्छया खलु पुरा विमुच्यते संविभिद्य जगदण्डमोजसा.
That's a 14. Tasya cha kshitipayo maho niladyo mahat prakriti saptaka vritihi tattadatmakataya vishan sukhi yati te padamanavritam vibhom. So, like we said, even that soul, when it is traversing, it has something called as a Sukshma Sharira, I said. So the Sukshma Sharira still has the Pancha Bhutas, then it has the ability, intellect is there, right, which is the Mahat, and also it has an identity of its own, which is called as the Ahankaram or the ego, the identity. That's a simpler way of putting it. So all of these are what separates us from the Paramatma. So when you have to go merge with the Paramatma, you have to shed each of these layers and then go. And we'll see when Dasakam 5, we start see creation. When creation starts from the Paramatma, each of these layers are formed. So similarly, when you're going and merging back to the Paramatma, you have to shed each of these layers and go. That's what it talks about, is when you start leaving the Brahmandam and going, each of these layers are shed. And ultimately, the only thing that remains is the Paramatma soul itself, which means it will automatically go and merge into the Paramatma. That's a simpler way of understanding it. Think of it as 4 layers of clothes, and then you're shedding, or 5 layers of clothes, which you're shedding each of that out, 7 actually, and then you eventually go and merge, right? So tasya cha kshiti payo maho nila, and then put a plus, dyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi. So that 2 lines are together. Okay? Tattadatma kathaya vishan sukhi, comma, yati te padam anabrutam vibho. Tasya cha kshitipayo maho niladhyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi tattadatma kataya vishan sukhi yati te padam anabrutam vibho.
Dasya sa shadipvayo maho nilathyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi tattadatmakadaya visansukhi yadi de padamanavrutam vibho.
Tasya chak siti. Is it shiti or siti? Is it sa or sha?
K-S-H, kshiti.
Oh, kshiti. Okay. Tasya chak kshiti payo maho nilatyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi tattadatmakataya vishan sukhi yati te padamanavritam vibho.
After sukhi, there is a comma, okay?
Ah,
okay. Last one. Archiradighatimi drishim prajan vichutim na bhajate jagatpate sachidatmaka bhavat gunodayan ucharantamanilesha pahimam. So this way, O Lord, when the soul for liberation, when it goes to the Archiradi Margam, which is the path of light, which is the path of liberation, if you're not going to get liberated, there's something called as a Dhumra Margam through which the soul goes. But anyway, that's not covered here. But so, Lord, this way, once the soul goes through this path where it's actually getting liberated, then there is no returning back. Right? Then you're not going to take multiple births anymore. You are completely liberated. However, I think it will still come when the next Brahma comes, which we'll see later. So, but it's pretty much liberated for this time portion of the time. So, and then, of course, once it's merged into you, it is always in that state of supreme bliss inside you, O Lord. So that, O Lord of Guruvayur, Anilesha, the Lord of Guruvayur who is there, Krishna, please you bless me so that I also go through this path of liberation, eventually come and merge into you. So this is the path of the Ashtanga Yoga. So there are different ways you can go and merge into the Lord or get liberated, right? There's also Bhakti Yogam, which is we're going to talk extensively in Narayaneeyam. Then there is, Jnana, the path of knowledge, and the Karma Yoga. This is the Ashtanga Yoga, the path through which most of the saints get control, and then they are able to control how the soul leaves and then control what happens, right? That is this path. So, Archiradi Gatim Idrishim Brajan, comma, Vichutim na bhajate jagatpate Sachidatmaka Bhavat Gunodayan. So the nu that is there, you put a in, Bhavat Gunodayan, comma. Next word starts with the u. Ucharantam Anilesha Pahimam. So you can do this twice. We have time, 5 more minutes. So Archida Adigatimi Drishim Brajan Vichutim na bhajate jagatpate Sachidatmaka Bhavat Gunodayan Ucharantamanilesha Pahimam.
Archiradigadim itrisim vrajan vichudim na bhajade jagatpade Sachidatmaka bhavat gunodayan ucharandamanilesa pahimam. 2 times?
2 times.
Okay. Achiradigadimritim Brajan Vichudinna Bhajate Jagatpade Satchidatmagabavat Punodayan Ucharandamanilesh Pahimam.
अर्चिरादिगतमीदृशीं व्रजन् विच्युतिं न भजते जगत्पते सच्चिदात्मकभवत्कुनोदयान् उच्चरन्तं मनिलेश पाहि माम्.
So Gayatri, sorry, Sashi Garu, the Ucharantam, if you say, you can say Anilesha, then it breaks. Last line.
Okay. अर्चिरादिगतमीदृशीं व्रजन् विच्युतिं न भजते जगत्पते सच्चिदात्मकभवत्कुनोदयान् उच्चरन्तमनिलेश पाहि माम्.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Complete Dasakam 4. Sandhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam drishtamatre punarurupurusharthatmakam brahmatattvam tattavadbhati sakshat gurupavanapure hanta bhagyam jananam काहेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you, everybody. So next week, see, I generally do not cancel classes unless nobody is available. So if there are 4 or 5 people available, I end up keeping the class. So you can say, we can put in the group, seeing how many people are available to join next Saturday. And if 4 or 5 people, or 5, 6 people are there, then we'll still have the class. And who are not able to join, you can follow the recording.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving holidays
Happy
to
Thanksgiving, everyone. Bye.